Welcome and good afternoon. Thank you all for joining our panel discussion on Unlock Middle Mile Strategies with Winncom Technologies and Ceragon Networks. Here to speak today from Ceragon is their VP of Channels, Bob Bueller, and also from Ceragon, their Director of Sales Engineering, Ari Serkin. We also have representing from Winncom Technologies, our Fiber Product Manager, Alex Serdick. If anyone has any additional questions throughout this presentation, please feel free to add them into the chat and they'll be addressed at the end of the webinar. Alex, you're up.
Dawn, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I was actually blaring Eye of the Tiger to get myself psyched up for this. So thank you for everyone for joining. We've got a fantastic panel today where we're going to talk about middle mile strategies and what that means in relationship to BEAD. I also would like to thank our panelists, Bob and Ari on the phone with us. Again, what we want to do through this is we're going to talk about what BEAD is, what that means to middle mile strategy. And then if you've got questions throughout this presentation, just hold them to the end, enter them into the chat, and that'll be the last thing we do address. Again, the last thing I'll say before we kind of start this off is timing is of the essence. So if you are planning on applying for BEAD, please reach out to us and engage us early. There's a lot of steps in place, and we'll talk about some of those through this panel discussion. But again, we're here collectively to help you. So Bob,
thank you, Alex.
Yep, you got it.
I want to thank Winncom. I want to thank Alex for inviting us to this panel discussion, and of course my associate Ari today that's participating with me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, sure. We're excited all to be here and answer any and all questions that you might have regarding BEAD and products that Ceragon represents. And to kick this off, I'm going to start, Alex, I'm going to ask you a question. Share with us how middle mile strategies play a critical role in the success of BEAD-funded broadband deployments, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great question to start. So before I kind of dive into the middle mile strategies, it's first really important to consider just technology choices and how that's influenced by demographics, how it's influenced by population density, and by topology. And the key factors that shape these broadband deployment decisions. So if you look at application type, let's say urban areas. Now, these are the areas with the highest population density. It's really easy to justify fiber investment due to their ability to support high capacity networks with long-term scalability. For suburban areas, now these are regions that often, they do require a hybrid approach. They combine fiber and fixed wireless to balance cost effectiveness with coverage. Now, factors for this are varying population density. It could be geographical obstacles like rugged terrain, existing utility infrastructure like cables, underground pipes, utility poles, and then the corresponding right-of-way challenges that are associated to it. And the high cost for trenching, it makes hybrid deployments really a practical solution for suburban environments. The low-hanging fruit, I would say, though, however, is rural and remote areas. So these high-cost regions, they present the greatest challenge due to sparse population and at times very difficult terrains. So fixed wireless often becomes the most viable option, offering a cost-effective way to deliver broadband to these hard to serve, hard to reach locations. So the role of middle mile and what that strategy looks like. So middle mile networks are a key piece of the puzzle when it comes to BEAD funding. They act as a backbone that makes last mile connections possible, bringing reliable internet to unserved and underserved communities. While program requirements vary, and they vary per state to state, one thing's very universal. Every broadband serviceable location, or BSL, within that project area needs to have a plan for connectivity. So think middle mile networks as a high capacity highway that last mile providers rely on to deliver broadbands to homes, to houses. And a well thought out middle mile strategy just doesn't improve network reliability. It also adds route diversity, it builds in redundancy, it reduces the chance for service disruptions, which is really important in those rural and remote areas. So from Ceragon's perspective, what are the biggest challenges operators face when integrating middle mile infrastructure into the overall broadband plans? Ari, can you help us with that?
Yes, sure. Actually, it's a good question because there is a few challenge. I want to focus mainly on the 5 major challenges that we have here. So first one can be a cost and funding allocation. For example, middle mile required a significant investment for some time in a fiber, in a microwave or hybrid solution. So we need to find a way how we can optimize and provide a cost-effective solution. And the network scalability and future proofing is also a challenge because today we know about the capacity demand. We know how much capacity we need to provide, and what we don't know is how much capacity we can predict that the capacity will increase almost in a monthly basis and so on. So when the operator actually must plan a scalable network, okay, with high capacity solution that support future broadband demand. So we don't need to look only at the current demand, we need to look at the future demand, and this is a challenge because we need to make some prediction. Now, another thing under the scalability is that we need to find a flexible a multi-gigabit transport solution. As you know, today the microwave radio maybe cannot reach the huge capacity as a fiber, but still we can reach up to 10, 20 gigabit per second, and it's come very significant when we look at the future capacity growth. The third one, which can be a challenge, is actually the geographic and the deployment challenge. As you know, usually when we are working, our operator need to be part of the rural and underserved area. There is sometimes problem with the infrastructure that requires long distance connectivity. Sometimes you are not able to deploy fiber, so you are deploying the microwave system. And also operator, one of the challenges that the operator need to decide between the fiber, the microwave, maybe the hybrid solution is the best solution. Always need to consider the cost, the flexibility, the feasibility, and the deployment. So all of these things need to be considered. And that's why a very proper engineering design, period installation can help you to define what is the best solution, fiber, hybrid, or microwave. Now, if you look at the integration, you know, one of the main biggest term is interoperability, okay? We need to remember that when we work in the mid-mile solution, we actually need to connect to last mile solution, sometimes to the core. So the system need to be full interoperable with all these kind of devices. It can be fiber, fixed wireless, satellite, whatever needed. The system must be compliant, MEF compliance or any standard compliance. There is no way to work with proprietary system in this case because mid-mile is a part section of the whole network from core to the last mile. Now, we need to consider when it comes also to the latency, capacity, reliability, all of this need to take into consideration and to find the right wireless backhaul solution. So if I want to summarize all these 5 main pillars, I will say the following. I will say that to have a successful mid-mile solution and infrastructure, the operator must take into account the cost efficiency, the scalability, the technology should be agnostic approach, and of course, need to understand how we can leverage our microwave system, Ceragon microwave, with the fiber, because they come together and not just a replacement to each other. So all of this need to be considered. There is a challenge, but we already know how to overcome such challenge.
Yeah, and that really resonates with me, quite honestly. I use a term a lot on these calls. It's an analogy of a toolbox and using the right tool for that particular job based on the technology requirements. So I think you hit the nail on the head when you're looking at hybrid strategies. Some cases where fiber makes sense, some cases where fixed wireless makes sense. And through your products, there's a multitude of ways of offering those multi-gig transport speeds. Absolutely. So changing gears just for a quick second, Bob, can you shed a little light? How can service providers optimize existing middle mile infrastructure while planning these expansion efforts?
Sure. Well, one thing, I mean, you know, in the design plan and looking at the future capabilities over time is always try to leverage what you have currently in your existing infrastructure. I mean, that would be the first statement I would make from a cost-effective standpoint, to look at what you have. Can I expand that? Is there something I can add to it? Is it a license key expansion? What are my options with my existing infrastructure that I can add on? Maybe it's as simple as saying, okay, I don't have a disaster recovery plan today on what I have, and maybe I need to take that into consideration with my existing infrastructure and put a plan in place so that, God forbid, something happens, I have a recovery safeguard against, you know, problems that could occur, right? At the same time, one has to look at over time of the design, as we've been talking a little bit, in the hybrid networks that integrate fiber and wireless technologies effectively. And Ari brought up some key points of what is involved in that. One of the things that I'm not sure if you mentioned or not, but one has to consider in that combination of what that time to market is, right? And so that's a key determination of saying, okay, besides cost, besides capacity planning, besides where I'm placing this, whether it's rural, whether it's within the urban environment, or what the capacity is, or if it's suburban, that I also have to consider my time to market, right? And that, you know, based on that, if one's saying, oh my God, I got to pull a permit, I got to trench all this, I got to, you know, have construction crews out, and they're quoting me a time to market of X number of months, where I could have a time to market efficiency of weeks.
Yeah.
That determination factor becomes much easier to make, and at a cost savings on top of that. And in today's world, you know, you can create that balance in that design now between so many factors, not only in the fixed wireless space, but in conjunction with fiber in that hybrid model, that's conducive to the needs between urban and suburban to your advantage. So those would be the factors that I would say when you're allocating that balance. And that's really the key term for one to consider. What is my balance between those two, from a capacity planning, you know, to fiber, to where I want to use fixed wireless, right?
Yeah, and I could add a real world example. We were helping a customer with, this was a New Mexico CBRS BEAD opportunity, and going back to how do you leverage existing infrastructure, they were able to service almost 45% of a project area with their existing infrastructure without having to add asset locations. So one of the things we can help you with at Winncom is that pre-engineering and that planning. So as you're looking at your project areas and you're pulling in all those residential and commercial BSL locations, we can help you with the technology strategy to best serve your needs.
So, Alex, what strategies do you think can help maximize BEAD funding for middle mile deployments? What would you tell our audience today?
You keep on giving me difficult ones. So I'm hoping for true or false answers, but let me take a crack at it. So I'd say to answer this, I'd first start by looking at the landscape and funding flexibilities that exist today. So one key factor to consider is the Build America, Buy America, BABA Act. So last February, a year ago, the unavailability waiver was released, which exemptions included fixed wireless access and non-fiber broadband electronics from BABA domestic sourcing requirements. So what does that mean in practical terms? It means that radios, product categories, millimeter wave, 80 gig, E-band, point-to-point. It means that licensed microwave frequencies in 6, 11, 18, 23, single core, dual core radios you do not have to meet those strict domestic sourcing requirements. The exemption also covers antennas. So for E-band, the 1 foot and 2 foot direct connects. For the licensed microwave, it could be 1 foot through 10 foot, either direct connect or remote mount options. In addition to that, it also covers infrastructure components, things like towers, self-supporting or guide towers, mounts, mounting brackets, standoffs, and all that's covered under a waiver called DOC de minimis, which essentially gives you either 5% of the total project cost or $1 million, whatever is less, all to be covered under the BEAD reimbursement program and provides that domestic exemption from BABA. So from a real world application, kind of how to plan BEAD middle mile deployments. So when we're planning BEAD funded broadband deployments, the first step, and I mentioned this previously, it's pre-engineering. So this means taking stock of your existing assets, including towers, including buildings, along with identifying potential asset lease locations from providers like American Tower, SBA Communications, or Crown Castle. So this is where Winncom can step in and help by leveraging an ASR GIS database. And I always get that wrong, but what this does essentially is it's a tower mapping program where we can, based on your county, based on your state, we can help identify the best locations for new tower sites and align them with your broadband serviceable locations, BSLs, and your project areas. Here's the best part. Tower leasing costs are absolutely 100% reimbursable under BEAD funding, which makes it even easier to incorporate leasing into the middle mile strategy. So bottom line, to maximize BEAD funding, it's all about understanding the exemptions. It's about leveraging your existing infrastructure, and it's about making smart leasing decisions. By taking advantage of BABA waivers, working with trusted partners like Winncom and Ceragon, we can help map out the best locations to ensure your middle mile designs align around BEAD's reimbursement criteria, and you can stretch your funding even further, ensuring cost-effective, scalable, and deployable networks. So throwing this back to Ceragon, Bob, how should operators determine the right balance between fiber and fixed wireless for their deployment areas?
So it is. It's not always easy, and I think consulting with Winncom, Ceragon, or pre-sales, individual that has the experience in this endeavor is worth its weight in gold. So let me make that statement to you. A lot of engineers, people I've talked to, people within our community, will attempt it, and then we'll be talking on the back end, and I'll make the statement that I think everybody can understand. It's not technical. It's much easier to tie the knot the right way from the beginning than to untie it on the back end and retie it again the right way. Okay?
I like
now,
that.
With that said, it's a balance. It's based on cost, geography, demand, and regulatory compliance. And I say that with a smile, depending where you are and what you're trying to do, because that can cause you issues sometimes if you're not aware of them. And so when you take those considerations, again, it goes back to I have to balance my high density market compared to my rural suburban, right? I have to look at what those regulatory compliances are, and I have to add what my cost factors based on my budget allocation is going to be versus the demand of the capacity that I have to serve. You take all of that into consideration, you will then, or the person working with you, will give you what that balance will be between fiber and fixed wireless, okay? And they'll give you the best case is what you're looking for, not just today, but you also, the key is have to plan this out for a length of time, right? And sometimes people forget that. They're short-sighted. They take care of the need only today, and they forget about, well, what's my options for the future? What's my growth plan for the future? What happens if, in the Boolean logic of things? So I caution you to consider that. And again, the best plan is doing the right design and homework up front. Okay.
Perfect. No, couldn't agree more. So Ari, question to you would be, what factors should we consider when selecting network equipment for these middle mile deployments?
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. Maybe I will repeat some of the points that we already discussed on, but I will say that when selecting the equipment for the middle mile solution, we need to make and ensure high performance, cost efficiency products. We raised it a few times, and also future scalability. Also, Bob said we don't need to think about just what our customer need today. We need to look on the future. I can give an example. Some of our products supporting very wide channel bandwidth, for example. When I come with this example to customer, they say, okay, nobody use this wide channel. Why do? So I always try to explain them that the product need to be future proof. Maybe today there is no need for this capacity, for this, let's say, modulation, for this channel bandwidth, but in the future, when you will need it, and you will need it, because there is no magic here. When you need to increase your capacity dramatically, you need the system to be ready for that. And I promise you that no one want to come and every year or every 2 years and replacing the equipment and the install. So it can save a huge amount of money by not replacing the equipment after 1, 2, 3 years. Ceragon can ensure in some case that the product can meet even the capacity of 5 years ahead. Our product is ready. If you look at the mobile operator, this is not the case. Maybe we look about 10, 20, and even 50 gigabit per second over one link. So this is a huge capacity, and our product is ready for that. Some of the product ready for that. So we talk about the scalability and the future proof and why it's important. So second, cost efficiency. We understand that the cost efficiency is very important, but it's not just the cost of the product. We're not talking about the cost of the product. We are talking about total cost of ownership. We need to think when we are developing our product and manufacturing our product, we need to think about how we can save the solution to customer. For example, Alex, you spoke about the towers. We all understand that sometimes the tower load is very critical to installing the antenna and radio.
Yep.
We talk about the size of the antenna. So if I can provide the optimal solution that can provide you high capacity with the smaller antenna size, with minimized product size, less power consumption, I can gain more and more point and score when I come with our solution. And this is something that we are considering in our product. Now, one of the things that we need to make sure is that we have a reliable solution. We are talking about the product that has more than 80 years of MTBF, mean time between failure. This is very important. No one wants to climb the tower, replacing the radio in a monthly or yearly basis. So we are proud that we have very high MTBF and we install our equipment in very harsh environment. Another point is the time to market. I think it's one of the significant points here. When it comes to the time to market, we want a product that will be easy to install. Okay. I can tell you, to be honest, whenever you can install fiber, go for it. Fiber is an amazing solution and everything. The microwave is not just alternative to fiber. It's come to replace, or let's say, install the fiber when install the microwave when the fiber is not possible. Of course, we can leverage and combine fiber and microwave together and so on in the meanwhile. But the time to market is very important. The system needs to be easy to install, friendly graphic user interface, and very compact. So I can tell you that in average, one hop, one link, it's take about 1 day to install. It can be less, depending on the expertise of the installer. So the time to market is very important. We have some customer that are able to install fiber, but the time is critical in this case because of the competitive environment. So we're offering wireless. So Security, last thing but not least, security is very important. Today, the microsystems are very reliable. We are talking about AES 256 encryption if needed for some. We're talking about traffic management. Some nobody can connect on attack. Let's say the radio link. It need to be very sophisticated. So we are always thinking about how to improve the security and another mechanism of security in our system. So to summarize, at the end of the day, Ceragon helped the customer to build a scalable, effective, and reliable for middle mile solution. So we understand that all the point, the equipment performance, the TCO, lower the TCO, and and everything is need to be as one kit when we are providing our solution.
So key things I heard there was scalability, high capacity, supporting multi-gig transport speeds, and low latency. So what I like about your product lines is you do offer a way to do this in a very unique way, where you can use millimeter wave E-band radio offering 10 gigabits per second, and then you could even overlay that with a license, depending on your RAIN region and your distance. But that could give customers the ability to really kind of not future-proof, but ensure the reliability associated with these links. So when it does rain, which would affect a millimeter wave radio, you've got the license there as a backup in your multi-core setup.
Exactly.
So I think there's a lot of stuff customers can do to really enhance their middle mile network throughout your product.
Yeah, that's why you mentioned before the pre-engineering is very critical in this case. Once you have a proper pre-engineering, then you can, how say, peace of mind for long here in the installation and everything.
And for those of you on the line, we can help you do this too. So can Ceragon. So using Link Planner or Path Loss, we're able to put together link budgets where you can see your Fresnel. We can see exactly if there's any obstructions, any issues, but we'll be able to provide you with some real-time numbers of what the expectation would be based on modulation for capacity and reliability.
Exactly.
So from a latency and throughput, how would you compare, I guess, fiber and wireless middle mile solutions?
Okay, so this is very important point, because when it comes to the wireless transmission, when it comes to transmission at all, the throughput and the latency are two major factors. So I'm proud to say that when it comes to the latency in the Ceragon product, I call it fiber-like, because we are not talking about microwave that has a millisecond or second of latency. We are talking about microsecond latency per hop. Just to give you an example, when you look at the fiber, of course, we are not compete with the fiber. We want to give some comparison that it will be better to understand. When you talk about 100 kilometer or 62 mile, the latency is about 1 millisecond when it comes to the fiber. Of course, it can be less, but this is around. When it comes to the wireless, sometimes it's slightly higher, but with certain product, you can provide in a microsecond per hop. The hop can be 1 mile, 10 mile, or we have a world record, by the way, 160 mile link, okay, just with one hop, one link. And all this link also, when we talk about the latency is still not more than 1 millisecond. It's a huge thing when, especially when it comes to the sensitive, let's say, application. Now, another thing that is important is about the throughput. So we cannot, when you look at the fiber, you virtually have unlimited throughput, but it's costly, you know, based on the scale of the capacity and everything. When it comes to the wireless, likely today, when you, by the way, I can give you an example. There is a lot of network and infrastructure that replacing their existing microwave radio, because in the past you used to work with 10, 100 megabit per second. Today we are talking about a gigabit per second. When it comes to the microwave, especially millimetric wave, it comes to the 10 gigabit per second, 20 gigabit per second. We are soon going to present our 25 gigabit per second per radio or 50 gigabit per second using layer 1 aggregation to radio connecting together. That's a huge capacity. It's in a millimetric wave, and we're also trying to increase the capacity distance in the millimetric wave, because one of the disadvantages that we have in a millimetric wave is the distance. Maybe I will talk later on about how we can reach longer distance even in a millimetric wave. So this is about the throughput. We are talking about a gigabit. I think I covered the latency and the throughput, which is the two main factors in all of this. And this is bring me again to the scalability, that it's very important that the product, even if you don't need all this gig, you need a product that's ready, future-proof, ready for such high capacity.
Nice, nice. Now, I know we talked about this at a high level, but what frequency bands in both licensed microwave and millimeter wave would you say are best suited for BEAD middle mile deployments, and why?
So it's actually, when you look at the mid-mile, it's very interesting, because when it comes to the last mile, it's simple. Usually it's a short distance, very short distance. You talk about 1 mile, even feet, 2 mile, 3 mile, and so on. When you talk about the mid-mile, you need to consider that the distance can be longer, 3 mile and above, okay? So when we talk about the frequency, you have two options. You have option to work with the microwave frequency, meaning from 4 gigahertz up to 42 gigahertz, depend of course on the regulation and the approval and so on. And if the distance is shorter, but still you need between, let's say, 3 miles to 10 miles, you can use what we call a multi-band, a dual band solution, meaning that you can enjoy in both worlds. You can use E-band and microwave together, connecting together with one cable, one layer, one cable, one pipe, and then you are enjoying the both. You have the micro for the longer distance as a backup, or as additional capacity, you use the E-band. So this is very interesting and important. And the third one is that today we are working to increase the distance of our E-band solution. How? We use larger antenna, 3-foot antenna with a stabilizing system. We have more transmit power in our IP50, let's say IP50EP, extended power, than we can reach. So we have some logo that we are used today, that the new millimetric wave is, so the millimetric wave is the new microwave, actually. So there is some area that they are replacing the high frequency, like 38 microwave, 26, 32, even 23 gig. They are replacing this microwave to even millimetric wave. Why? Because you can have more capacity per radio when you use millimetric wave, and usually the license fee is much cheaper, is a free license, okay, when it comes to the E-band, so you reduce the bureaucracy if there has some. So this is my idea. So it's all about the pre-engineering. Once we know the distance, once we know the capacity required, we know how to select and offer customer the best solution from the three: millimetric, multiband, and microwave. Of course, we always will select the one is more cost effective and optimized for the TCO.
Excellent, excellent. So staying with that vein, what would you say some of the best practices for maximizing throughput and reliability when using both of these technologies are?
When we look at the best practice, so actually, I think this is if we want to maximize the throughput, we always need to find a way to combine a millimetric wave as a solution. There is no radio solution that can provide higher capacity than a millimetric. So if we work on the multi-band solution, and the multi-band is become big buzz today in the microwave world, because you are combining and enjoying the microwave and the millimetric wave solution. We are talking about more than 10 gigabit capacity, high reliability and availability than you have in the E-band solution. We have some technique that we use. It's not like a black and white here. It's adaptive modulation, all this term coding. We know how to increase and decrease our modulation in order to provide you the highest availability. This is, I will mention, this is the back. So let's say the following. The pre-engineering is very important. If you want to optimize the link design and the spectrum use, you need properly define what is the best solution that will meet the certain availability, let's say. Millimetric and microwave together, this is the best solution. If you have a distance that, let's say, 50 miles, I don't think it will be the most of the case, but sometimes there is such case. So the only microwave is the solution, okay? From the 10 mile and below, you absolutely can use millimetric and you can use multiband and so on. And also you need to take into account the redundancy, okay? If the product requires the redundancy, we can provide. All our product, by the way, can use as a standalone, or it can use as the hot standby redundancy, meaning you install in 2 units, one is active, the second one is a standby, and in a millisecond, they are switching each other. Nice. So I think these trees cover more or less the best practice.
Fantastic, thank you very much. So Bob, how does Ceragon Networks help operators navigate the technical complexities of frequency band selection?
That's a great question. I think the way we would do this is through network optimization and audit services. So our staff would come and get involved from solution design and planning services, right? Either from the start or if it was existing and already deployed from an audit standpoint, right? Where our experts would do a detailed analysis to determine frequency, RF, band allocation, network topology, recommendations, where we could adjust things of this nature, right? And then maybe suggest some equipment changes if necessary, or QoS enhancements, link capacity modifications, or new frequency configurations or considerations, right? So those design services validate parameters for the customer, you know, to give them now what models, you know, it could be years if it's existing, you know, and they might have not have taken that long-term approach we talked about earlier on. And so with new technology and R&D, you know, they might all of a sudden realize like, oh my God, I can get a less footprint from a leaf standpoint, greater power, right? Better bandwidth, right? And I can get that for a much lesser amount than they might have imagined, right? When they consider what their CapEx and OpEx costs are, and then take advantage of that just from that consideration standpoint. I mean, I've talked with people that, you know, they don't realize like, okay, they might be getting 10 gigs and now you can get 20 gigs of bandwidth, for example, right? In a smaller footprint on top, right? So when these things are taken in for distance and capacity planning, whether it's again upfront or through an audit of existing infrastructure that's already in place, it can serve again that customer for another X number of years, right? So I think that's a really important aspect. Call it a health check, maybe is a better term, for those who are existing. And then of course, like Ari has been talking about and I've been talking about with you, you know, planning the proper design upfront if you're tying the knot.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about turnkey. So one of the things that Winncom can help do is that FCC planning as well. So that could be on the license side, obtaining the PCN, on the millimeter wave side, it could be the registration. So again, it all comes down to, as you mentioned, proper planning, pre-engineering, and putting together a complete solution.
Yeah, it's what it really comes down to. What's the future needs that's truly required, not just today, but 5-year outlook, right?
Yep.
10-year outlook.
Yeah, and that's going to be part of the service provider's responsibility is they have to support every BSL in a project area for that 5-year period. So
Right.
making sure they have robust networks is hugely important in the overall design.
Yeah. I mean, Ceragon's been known in the tier 1 space for decades.
Mm-hmm.
And has been known as that reliable solution. Once it's installed, I'll call it correctly, that it lasts and just works. So the standpoint of being able to provide those end-to-end solutions, or as you call it, turnkey, I think is critical for customers to understand.
I 100% agree.
So, Alex,
Mm-hmm.
how do we look at waiver impact on a network design along with the funding eligibility? How do the two coincide, right? Minimus waiver impact along with network design and funding availability that you see today with BEAD.
Okay, so let's answer that in 2 parts. So if we're looking at de minimis, which would be the infrastructure side of the house, right? The towers, which could be like a drone or a trilon, or it could be the non-pens or the standoffs or the mounts. All that is eligible for reimbursement under that DOC de minimis. Now, the other side of that coin would be the waiver wire exemption for telecommunication equipment. And that includes the middle mile we're talking about today. It also includes the last mile. And what that exemption stipulation says is it can't have final manufacturing in China. And there has to be a compliance piece that's offered. So what we do here at Winncom is, and I'll talk about this at the very end, we have a portal. We'll send access to it to everyone who's attending this call. On that call, we specify what these waivers mean in real world terms. We provide the waiver themselves, and then we have a product eco center overview. So you can see from every facet, if it's active fiber, being the ONTs or OLTs, is it passive fiber being the outdoor OSP networks in the fiber adjacent accessories, the middle mile, the infrastructure, the last mile of CBRS. We put together that complete design of what is eligible for reimbursement from BEAD. And then part of our value as a distributor and BEAD expert is we help for each individual vendor as you're submitting your applications. There's compliance parts and pieces to it. If it's BABA certified, it requires a letter. If it's exemption, there's about 5 different things you need to collect: manufacturer name, model number, country of origin, and description of product. And again, we'll format that in a really easy to use PDF that you can attach to your applications. So the goal of Winncom is really to try to take a complicated process and make it a lot simpler and provide you with a single point of contact, being your salesperson here, who can walk you through. And there's a team of people that are behind them, from world-class vendors like today in Ceragon, to our engineering help and support, to our supply chain and logistics management, to our product management, and then our sales support teams. All of us be trained, be certified, and here to help. So a roundabout way of answering that question, but key things are compliance pieces, and I guess the thing to take away is we can certainly help to ensure that those applications are correct and valid. And then we do offer grant writing assistance to derive and develop those narratives for you, which could either be an audit, it could be something in the middle where we'll check your information and then add pieces and parts, or we could do a full service for you, where we take all the information, talk to your CPA firm, pull together your financials, write your budget and technology narratives, and submit that on your behalf, answer questions. And then we have even a post-award compliancy piece to make sure money doesn't get crawled back and you are in the best case of winning, maintaining, and then positioning yourself throughout that 5-year period. So I'm gonna move my question to Ari. What are some of the best strategies for deploying networks in remote, mountainous, and quite frankly, difficult to reach terrains?
So actually, the main reason to deploy and install microwave, when it's come to the middle mile, we mean a remote mountains, so any hard reach area, there's come with a challenge, a significant challenge. So, but with the right strategy, um, our customer can ensure the reliable and high capacity connectivity with the pre-engineering, the correct pre-engineering, with minimizing the cost as much as possible and deployment time. How we do that actually? First of all, you use the wireless transport to overcome fiber limitation. In this area, mainly you have sometimes limitation with the fiber installation. So by using a microwave and millimetric as a fiber alternative, it can provide you a benefit because with the fiber you need a trenching, it's a costly and a slow installation in this case. So high capacity with a micro product can overcome this terrain issue. Now, we spoke about long reach long distance microwave. So of course you can use the lower frequency of the microwave, like 6 and 11 gigahertz band. It can cover tens of miles, even up to, as I mentioned, 100 mile, like nothing, okay? And then it gives you an additional advance that you don't need any intermediate relay station. So as long as you have line of sight, you can install 10 of Smile Link without any intermediate station. So this gives a huge advance, especially in the terrain, in the mountain area. I want to remind you that the mountain area is the best case for installing microwave solution. No multipath phenomena. You can install lower tower height because you use the height of the mountain. So this is the optimal solution for the microwave. Now, we always, I going and repeating, you need to minimize, let's say, you need to plan based on the environmental and the terrain challenge. Sometimes you are installing in the area where there is a heavy rain, then maybe the millimetric wave is not the proper solution. Sometimes if you have a terrain challenge, you need some advanced link planning. We have a special tool for that. We have a pathless tool. We have other link calculation tools that we are using. We know to look at a very accurate map and to see how the mountain and terrain is look and provide the optimal solution. Of course, we'll always recommend to do site survey in such area, of course, but our tool is working, know how to predict the performance very well. And of course, you need to optimize the power. You need to optimize the infrastructure of the remote site. You don't want to provide the high power consumption product. Sometimes you have a limited energy in this. So you need to provide the solution that can overcome all the challenge that you have. I think more or less, if I will take like a key takeaway of this one, I will say you in this challenge of terrain, wireless transfer is a key for the fast, cost-effective solution and scalable broadband expansion. So if you can use Ceragon long haul solution or microwave solution in this case, okay, because I less think that the millimetric wave solution is a perfect solution for the such terrain. But again, it's all about the distance and performance. So with Ceragon long haul solution and a microwave solution, we can easily meet this challenge of problematic, let's call it problematic terrain solution.
Excellent, excellent. And staying with that, what steps can be taken to future-proof those middle mile deployments? And I guess we can look at that from two perspectives, right? If it's net new, or maybe if it's an existing technology there that we're talking rip or replace, or adding millimeter wave to enhance.
I will tell you the following. From day one, when you're installing the system, you need to ensure the long-term scalability, cost-effective, and to adapt to evolving broadband demand. And there is a high demand in the broadband. It's always going to increase. You cannot rely on what you need today. You need to think about tomorrow. So maybe if you look at the investment maybe is higher in the day one, but it saves you a huge TCO amount of money and costs in the future. For example, you need to install a product that is built in scalable and multi-gigabit infrastructure. Even if you don't need all this multi-gigabit, you need only 1 gig. Let's have a product that's ready for that. Again, you don't want to go, especially we talk about the terrain and harsh environment. You don't want to visit often this place. You want to install a link that will be ready without sending a technical or engineer every time for upgrade. So you need a product that's ready for the future. You need a modular product, by the way. In case you need to add additional capacity, it should be modular. It should be software based. So you can enable the highest software or capacity remotely without site visiting. And another thing that we are investing a lot this time is to leverage the automation and the intelligent network. If you have intelligent network management, okay, that can predict, okay, for example, oh, are you reached to almost to the maximum capacity of the link? Let's consider to increase the capacity. Then you get some alert or command, and with our solution, intelligent solution, you can easily increase the capacity by software without waiting for bottleneck, for example. You want to know it better how to predict. You want to know exactly how the real-time and performance monitoring to work. All of this, by the way, saving a lot of in the OpEx point of view. Okay, it's not just about the CapEx. So we have some AI, you know, today AI is a big buzz. So we have an AI tool that can predict all of this bottleneck, can give you some action item, can give you some tips. What do you need to do? Corrective action for the future. So this is the strategy.
And I just want to interject, Ari, the last piece, of course, would either be to utilize our multiband solution or some form of disaster recovery backup solution, right? So that you don't have a single point of failure. So at least when in our solutions, you know, when we're using multiband, you know, we're using dual power supply, right? So that, you know, there's not a single point of failure. So it's not like the person went up and installs it and God forbid that goes wrong, they're down, okay? Some companies might define that as, you know, sufficient enough, and we typically will look at it saying, no, if you're going to have a full disaster recovery, you have to consider all the facets within the model. Okay.
That's a fantastic point, right?
So, Alex, how does Winncom Technologies assist operators in designing and deploying official middle mile networks? How do you guys do it?
Good question. Good question. So let me answer it in a couple ways. So from a BEAD application perspective, it starts with, we've got a proprietary QGIS database. So we can take a look at your county, your state, and we can see what's happening there currently. Are there any existing technologies there? Where are your estimated BSLs? Where are your estimated community anchor locations? What's UCLA look like from upload, download information? So from there, we can really help you plan out a strategy of attack. And again, I mentioned previously, it's that toolbox analogy, right? Of using the right tool for the job. But say that you're looking suburban or rural environments and fixed wireless makes the most amount of sense. By taking your existing network locations, pulling up the ASMR database of existing tower sites, we can help put together those robust designs. And using Link Planner, pulling in licensed microwave specifications, millimeter wave specifications, designing a redundant ring, incorporating that with, let's say, a Tirana type of CBRS deployment, incorporating the heat map, we can tell you exactly what the expectation is going to be for each one of these locations. So going back to the question of how can we help you design those effective middle mile solutions, one of our keys of success is our depth and breadth of engineering. We've got multiple people trained and certified in these various technologies, and they're part of these B teams who are here to put together quick and efficient solutions for you. And again, I can't urge this point enough. Timing is of the essence. There is about 15, 16 states that within the next 60 days are going to move through pre-qualification. And why that's important, pre-qualification is a prelude to wave 1 and wave 2 of funding. And in most cases, you're not going to be eligible to submit applications for wave 1 or wave 2 if you haven't filled out your pre-quals. And that varies and differs per state. Some is just a registration, some want to see some financial information, some want to hear a little bit about your plan, scope, project areas. Contact us. We have put together a lot of these applications at this particular point. We can help you formulate your strategy, put that strategy into writing, and again, give you the best possible chance of success. So I know we're winding down on time. I'll ask one last question. I'll open up to the group. Is what advice do we have for operators looking to maximize BEAD funding while ensuring future proofing of the networks?
So let me start. Again, I want to thank you, Alex, for inviting Ceragon to the panel today. I want to thank the audience that has listened to us and been with us, and I look forward to any questions they might have. I think it's imperative, and I'll tell you from my perspective, that Winncom's been involved and you've been involved in BEAD and understanding the intricacies of this, not only yourself, but I know there's associates of yours on your staff, and that's why I'll tell you that Ceragon has partnered with Winncom in this capacity, not only to do this panel, but to do some of the road shows along with Winncom, and to participate being kind of their middle mile go-to partner, okay? So without a doubt, I'll give you the kudos and say, hey, if you're looking for someone who really knows, what's involved in getting and applying to BEAD, what type, of grants you have to go after and what you need to fill out, and the timelines associated to that, which are mission critical, as Alex has kind of notated, time is of the essence. Winncom would be an excellent partner of choice.
Thank you so much. I certainly appreciate that. And I would say, I know we're running out of time here. We are doing our next roadshow. It'll be the Monday of WISP America. So if you are planning on attending WISP America, I would highly recommend. We've got a really great training. It's about 5 hours on site, but we're talking about hybrid strategies on how to choose that right technology based on your various states, scoring rubrics, and unique applications. And you're going to hear from industry experts, from WISPA themselves, to the fiber side, to the last mile side, and then Ceragon will be there to talk about middle mile. So again, I want to thank everyone for their time today. Please, again, engage us. If you've got any questions, if you think about applying, reach out. We can certainly help you do that. There is no cost of doing a pre-qual and not applying for application wave 1 or 2. There is a cost for not applying and being stuck, not being able to submit applications. So again, leverage us, our expertise. And again, thank you again for participating.